they estimate. The majority of American renters fall in the rent-burdened category, they said in the report. This marks the first time that's occurred in the more than 20 years that the ratings agency has been tracking the metric. If we're looking at the low to moderate income families, they're taking 40% and more of their income on the rent, even if the metro area itself hasn't crossed that 30% line yet, said Moody's Analytics senior economist Lu Chen. In cities with minimum wages above $7.25, it takes an average of 2.5 full-time minimum wage workers to make the typical two-bedroom rental affordable, meaning renters would spend no more than a third of their income on rent. In cities with a $7.25 minimum wage, it takes an average of 3.5 full-time workers to meet this threshold. Income disparity does really play a big role and impact the affordability outlook for a lot of renters, Chen added. Analyzing publicly available data from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, and the U.S. Census Bureau, the firm found that the affordable housing crisis in the U.S. is widening the growing divide between rent prices and income. From 1985 to 2022, the national median rent price rose 151%, while overall income grew just 35%. That's to say, the average rent rose over 4 times faster than wages. Price rising crisis in the U.S. is widening the growing divide between rent prices and income. From 1985 to 2022, the national median rent price rose 151%, while overall income grew just 35%. That's to say, the average rent rose over 4 times faster than wages. In that same time frame, the average price for a single-room rental unit went from $345 to $872. Meanwhile, median incomes rose from $48,113 in 1985 to $64,994 in 2022. In some areas, that disparity was even more pronounced. For example, in Richmond, Virginia, rents rose 179%. In San Antonio, Texas, and Nashville, Tennessee, rents have shot up by 204% and 255%, respectively. Overall, the cost of living in the U.S. has increased by 89% since the mid-1980s, according to the firm's calculations. In other words, Americans have experienced a steep decline in their purchasing power across the last 4 decades, and they've been forced to move to cheaper, subpar units or spend significantly more of their earnings on rent. While in 1985, the average 30-year-old renter in the U.S. would pay $596 for a 3-bedroom unit, in 2023, a 30-year-old millennial has to disburse almost $1,000 more for a 3-bedroom apartment. As they get married and have children, demand for multiple bedroom apartments is rapidly ticking up. In fact, about 36% of cities are building larger apartments to accommodate growing families, remote work, and online learning. Whether these families will be able to afford it is another matter. While baby boomers enjoyed a rent-to-income ratio of just 9% when they income ratio of just 9% when they were in their 30s. For millennials of roughly the same age now, that ratio is 89% higher. The research also shows that millennials who've paid the median rent price every year since 2018 have spent about $129,420 on rent over the past half a decade. Since 2000, median rent prices have outpaced inflation by 29%, meaning that median rent prices grew 90%, while inflation grew 70%. Rent price increases have even exceeded home price increases in some metros. In those markets, rental rates climbed 152% on average since 2000, while home prices rose just 112%. The disparity was the greatest in Birmingham, Alabama, where the increase in rent prices was 92% greater than the change in home prices, the researchers reported. Unfortunately, this trend is likely to continue for the rest of the year, with official agencies reporting an average monthly growth in rent prices of 1.7%. A separate study by CoreLogic exposed that the nation's rent price growth tripled year over year in January, starting the year with a 12% annual increase, up from a 3.9% annual increase in January 2022. All of these affordability challenges, limiting supply and creating barriers to home purchasing, are making imbalances in the rental market more and more unsustainable. For that reason, the experts believe a disastrous scenario for mass evictions is forming. Since December, evictions are skyrocketing in America. Court filings rose by double or triple-digit percentages in 32 metro areas tracked by Eviction Lab, a research group at Princeton University. Overall, 14 cities saw more filings than would have been normal before the pandemic. Nationwide, we're now seeing a 40% surge in eviction filings over pre-pandemic levels. But the truth is that even before the beginning of the health crisis, no major U.S. city had enough affordable rental housing for its lowest earners. Then came staggering increases driven by record-high home sales and prices. There just wasn't enough housing on the for sale or rental market due to a decade of sluggish residential construction. Zillow senior economist Orchestrated explained, when rent increases that fast, many families are getting priced out, said Devingy. Since January, over 100,000 families were displaced from their homes. I keep thinking each month evictions are going to be lower, but they're actually getting higher, lamented Mary Kachorik, managing attorney for Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid.